So it's got to be. There we are. All right, that's gonna work. Perfect. All right, now we have sound. Cool. Perfect. All right, everyone. As I was trying to say, hello and welcome back to this month's edition of the Baldman Games Chat About. This month we are chatting about the upcoming Journey Through the Radiant Citadels book, and we are very excited. I am just absolutely tickled, as you could tell by the expression on my face, to have here with us today Surena Marie, who is the author of the very first adventure, Salt's Legacy, that we are actually previewing this weekend at the D&D virtual weekends. So very excited for that, and super excited to talk to Surena a little bit about the adventure and inspiration and all that behind it. But before I get into all of that, Surena, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell everyone a little bit about who you are, maybe what you do in the industry, or how you got started, or whatever feels right. How did I not know? Like, I knew you were on Dungeon Rats, but I guess I somehow didn't connect it to like you. Yeah. Which, yeah, yes, yes. Dice picks, doodles, and happy things. Um, that's how I try to do social media. And for everyone who follows me on Twitter, if you want more happy things, follow me on Facebook. Okay, it's all uplifting messages there, and, and pictures of animals. Um, anyways, though, so we want to talk a little bit today about Radiant Citadel, but specifically, it kind of as a whole, but then specifically about your adventure, obviously, because that's going to be what you know about. So the concept of Radiant Citadel is it's an anthology, much like Candlekeep Mysteries was, but this time I don't want to call it the twist because it's not really a twist. It's something that we should do anyways. All of the stories are the voices of people of color, and if I'm not mistaken, it's all based on cultures and things that you're part of. And that's kind of where a lot of the inspiration came into is like your lived experiences with these other cultures that aren't, American, you know, white picket fence. Mhm. Yes. 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 So, Ajit George is kind of the project lead on this. Obviously, as it's an official Wizards book, the actual project lead is it Jeremy or Chris? I got it back. Wes. Oh gosh, the other option. Other, Wes. Yes, so Wes is doing the actual, like behind the scenes making the gears turn in the company, but really like was kind of hands off and like Ajit and led kind of the thing and helped pick this wonderful group of creators, um, artists, illustrators, I believe even some of the editing team too. Um, which is amazing because that kind of brings together this kind of cohesive uh, group of people who have like this. shared passion for, sharing something that's very personal to you. And yeah, and yeah, gosh, that's great. So it's not necessarily something that happens with all of the books, but I know that's something that we do with the D&D Adventures League campaigns. Like there was a Slack for the Ravenloft Mist Hunters and a Slack for the adventures that went along with Frost Maiden. I'm so having a hard time with words today. But yeah, so that is that's really wonderful to hear because it makes it seem like you'll definitely be able to, if there's kind of commonalities between them, weave these all together into a big overarching story, despite them being standalone adventures in the end. So therefore, the options are unlimited, um, and I'm excited by that. Yeah, gosh. Okay, so Salted Legacy is the first adventure in the book, and it's the one you wrote. Was there a specific inspiration behind it that you had in mind when you were like, they're like, well, we want you to write something, and you're like, I have an idea. Oh, I oh, I was being told they can't hear you. Hmm. Um, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I hope not. I'm like, um, gosh. Okay. Try saying something now.
Hi, hello, can you hear me? Yes?
Okay.
Good?
Ah,
Technology is the best, right? It's just
yeah.
so good.
Sorry about that, everyone. That was actually me. That's my fault. I was doing double duty here, so I apologize immensely for that. Um, okay. Anyways, now they can hear your lovely voice.
Incredible. Amazing. Uh,
The night
you were
markets.
asking
Yeah.
me, yes, what inspired me to write this adventure. And it definitely came first with the a very visual idea of the night markets, going and experiencing this large lit up market. I also thought about, it's so silly, but the spell Dancing Lights was also an inspiration because it feels like it's a spell that has the least use. Like, and please don't come for me. I know that people love this spell, but it's such a funny spell to me, and I'm like, well, practically, if we were to use magic in the real world, dancing lights would absolutely have
Yes.
practicality. So in creating this night market, I wanted it to be like visually like luminous and bright and have all of these colors that are often not really seen in fantasy. So there's that. And like I was saying, the idea behind my adventure too was having a family dinner. So it's like there you have a bit of chaos, you have misunderstandings, you'll have games, you have things that you do together. But at the end of the day, it's really about your relationships with each other, versus, you know, fighting a fight, good versus evil. Like that's not what I wanted to do with my adventure. It's really intimate and
Hmm.
about the people in the market and the players, like helping them along the way.
Nice. I love that, and
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of dancing lights. I don't know about everyone else, but it just adds a little pizzazz to the
It
adventure.
does.
Every
It's pretty and it's cool. Like, but
yeah.
in battle and combat, I'm like, distract you, you know.
Yes, exactly. They are an excellent distraction, and I think all of my gnomes that have spellcasting have taken dancing lights exactly for that reason. I don't know why it's just my gnomes, but every single one of my gnomes characters has. I have a lot of those. But yeah, so it's gonna be a great venture going through that and everything. So one of the things that we're doing with Baldman Games is obviously we're organized play program, so we're adapting all of these adventures in the book to fit in your standard convention slot, which is generally about 4 hours. 4 hours. When you say it, it's like 4 hours is a long time, right? When you're playing D&D, 4 hours isn't really that long sometimes. So, in order to do that, we've kind of broken this down into some chunks here to kind of help make it manageable. And obviously, like we discussed in the pre-show, as the designer of something, you kind of have an idea of how long you hope something is going to take. But I have been wildly wrong on many of my adventures. So I'm gonna break this down, share with everyone what we're doing here, and see how you think this is gonna work, right? So we've kind of set up the beginning, the welcome to the market. You get a whole hour there to get into it, to really, get used to what's going on and get the feel of the place. And then about 20 minutes on investigations, and then about 40 minutes each on the games. So we wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time there because we think that's kind of where the bulk of it is, right? Not the investigation's not important. And don't want to go too far into that because obviously don't want to get spoilery on that, but um, you get to investigate stuff, everybody. So, bring your best investigation skill, which might be climbing a wall. Okay, all skills are good investigation skills, honestly. uh, except I don't know, medicine. Well, no, I guess how did they get? Yeah,
Forensics would be considered
yeah,
medicine, right? Like,
yeah, all of them. Every
right?
skill on the list then is good at
Mhm.
investigations. All very
Yeah.
bad. Sherlock Holmes would agree. But anyways, though, like, does that sound like you feel like we're rushing any parts of it, or are there other parts where you feel like players are maybe gonna miss out on stuff because they don't really have enough time? I feel like we did pretty good.
So I feel like you guys did really, really well. I will say that the games sort of unlock the investigation, sort
Yeah.
of in a way,
So they're kind of
which
interwoven there. So yeah.
they're interwoven. But if this were a video game, like what like my brain does all the time, if this were a video game and we had like skill tree and all of that stuff, um, dialogue options for the market would unlock later in the game. So having an hour at the top for free play is really great. Establish relationships, figure out why you're at the market, get things, and um, explore. But players will be sort of seen as tourists during that time.
Hmm.
So that's all. Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for that too. Being a tourist isn't necessarily a bad thing because as a
No,
tourist, you're not expected to know anything. So having a
exactly.
bunch of questions like makes perfect sense. Maybe some of the questions people will be like, "Well, why do you want to know that?" But,
Mhm.
that could lead to better relationships later down the road when you need information where they're like, "Oh, that was that nosy little gnome."
Exactly. Yeah. does like set up like those relationships, because there are so many NPCs and so many vendors that players can interact with and talk with, and um, always leaving it open for DMs to be creative and add like whatever shops and stores that they want to the market. Um, but I love the idea of having like, you know, a really curt relationship or curt interaction with a vendor, only to later on be able to have a heart to heart with them because now they trust you and they welcome you into their community, which is really the heart of the end of the adventure.
Hmm. Yeah, that becoming one, that sense of community, that's really kind of like the theme of this
Hmm.
entire adventure in my mind. Which really, I don't have any of the art up on screen, and I'm not gonna be able to pull that up right now because I didn't plan that. But that really kind of, to me, is kind of embodied in the fact that most of the art in this is of the characters that you're supposed to be meeting and everything. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, there is an amazing um, shot, like right at the beginning, of
Oh,
a little kobold stealing some green onions. So excuse me, liberating some green onions.
yes.
Um, clearly off to make soup for his family. Um, clearly. Um, but like aside from that, it's just like these people, and it's all about the people, and I love that so much. And I especially love how it's got this whole thing is about this family dynamic. Two
Mhm.
families, Zungun and
The Tenmo.
yeah, Tenmo.
Yeah.
I was like looking at it, and I'm like, oh gosh, pronunciation guide is helpfully right there for everyone like me. Families, they've had that complicated relationship, so
Yeah, and
things get weird.
things get a little spicy, and I love the idea that like in most
I love
like
that you say
family.
a little spicy considering one of the games.
Mhm, mhm. But you know, like you always have that trope of the two families who like generational rivalry between them, but like they're the same family. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, they're like literally like one is industrious, setting out to, gosh, you know, build their brand and sell all of the things. And the other one is like, but like traditional values like community and caring about each other. And like they all want their business to do well. They all care about their family. They all are suspicious about one another for the same reason. So it's, I don't know, it's fun, and I'm curious to see like which families, which family like players maybe are more inclined to go with, if any, or neither,
if
or
if any. I
yeah,
think that's a good point, right?
yeah.
Because they don't have to. And I really like that too, that how
Mhm.
you're saying like almost every culture has that. Because
Mhm.
absolutely, yeah, if we're going to like Southern Appalachian culture, we've got the Hatfields and McCoys. These fights have
Mhm.
gone back for generations. Why? We don't really know
Who
anymore.
knows? Yeah.
But we don't like them. And so like it's so great to see that like some of these like tropes, like they translate across, like it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter what culture. There's always that same thing of like, but we've just never liked them. But why, Grandma?
Right. I don't know. We just don't like.
Well,
And
yeah.
I yeah, one of the big things too with knowing that my adventure was going to be the first one in the book,
Hmm.
it was important to me, and I think to all of the other authors too, that like while we're pulling from our cultures, there's so much and like just the human experience
Hmm.
that we can all connect to. So like in knowing that like so many people from across many cultures are going to play my adventure, it's important that I wanted to touch on that heartbeat of community, family, and comedy too. I think that my adventure is pretty
Oh
comedic.
yeah.
It's I At some point I was like, Wes, are you sure? can I write this? Is this breaking D&D? And he's like, no, no, please more. And I was like,
He's like,
great.
it's ridiculous. Put more.
Yeah, he's like, I support you fully. I'm like, thank you.
Yes, and I love that we're seeing more and more of that, and I know people really started noticing it with like Wild Beyond the Witchlight and Strixhaven, to
Mhm.
where like the traditional ideas of like what is a D&D game, um of all right, we meet in a tavern, we gather our arms, we go to the dungeon, we crawl through it, and we get some loot, and hopefully we all make it out the other end. Like, yes, traditionally that was D&D. It was started. It was based on a combat game, and so combat was the focus. But like D&D has like definitely evolved to where you can absolutely still do that,
Yeah,
or you could just tell these like collaborative stories where like the moral of the story, the heart of the story, doesn't have to be about like literally fighting a bad
yeah,
guy. I mean,
right. Like,
you could be having a different kind of fight. We're having a you know
mhm,
conflict of values and stuff, and
yes.
why gotta yeah, exactly. And so I love that, and it's been so delightful to see. So from your adventure, obviously there's a lot in here. When people are sitting down to play this, are there like specific things that you want them to take from this adventure? I mean, like we talked a lot about, family and togetherness, but like any like kind of other, I don't know, themes?
Um, I think that if you were to take anything away from it, in a kind of a meta
Hmm.
way of thinking, I wrote my adventure really with like fast comedic play in mind. So the idea that like you don't have to be a lone wolf in the dungeon, like hacking and slashing your way to victory. Like you can just tell hilarious stories with your friends at this table together and know that you still created an impact in this world. Like your characters really just determine the success of these families, and like their future in the market. So I think that is something that I would want to for people to take with them. And also, if you were to bring snacks to like any game, like any adventure, this is the one. But bring your
Yes.
snacks,
Br-
like
Bring your
share them.
snacks, bring your
Hmm.
puns. Everyone gets inspiration. Like
Yes.
this is that adventure. Like it is definitely like it's all set up for that slapstick comedy, and like I think this is where my punny players are gonna really shine, and I'm just gonna be like, oh, I hate it. Oh,
Like psychic
inspiration.
damage. Thank you.
Oh, I hate it. It's great.
Mhm.
Definitely can see that, especially with some of the games, right? They really just like lend themselves to like bad jokes, just bad jokes. It's gonna be great.
Bad jokes.
I'm looking forward to it so much. Um, so aside from like the actual adventure itself, what was your favorite thing about writing this adventure?
Um, you know, it's a little bit of a sidestep, but
Yeah.
each of the 13 adventures, there is a gazetteer at the very end that kind of expands and builds on that world. So, should you want to play more in the location, there's hooks and culture and um, other like locations and stories that are in it. And I think for me, the world building itself was like it felt uh like I unlocked something in my brain. I was just like, oh my God, I love doing this. I feel like I'm really good at doing this. And diving into like how people talk to each other or how the culture actually functions. Um and then taking that and then translating that into the market, because that's kind of the pattern. We created the world and then we created our adventure in the world.
Hmm. And the
So
gazetteer for this one, was really great. It was concise, which
mhm.
which is great. All DMs are gonna love that. We don't want to read. I mean, well, I don't want to speak for everyone. Some of you want to read an encyclopedia and are gonna beg for more. Um, but there's just enough here talking about the lush jungles and the rare plants and animals, and my favorite, the bioluminescent flowers. Um,
Yes.
it definitely I went to I went to Disney World to the Pandora Land recently, and their little glow in the dark flowers. Like when I read this,
Oh,
I'm like, oh, it's like Avatar world.
yeah, a
It's
little bit. I just
beautiful.
like
Yeah, but like obviously, that world that James Cameron made had a basis somewhere in the world too, and it's very likely that he pulled from places just like you were
Mhm.
imagining, because like that's just natural beauty and just like awe and wonder you get like seeing it. You're just like, I don't ever want to leave here. And then you go and find this bustling marketplace and you're like, yes, definitely never want to
I
leave
live
here.
here now. Yeah.
I live here in this market with the snacks and can go out there in the beautiful jungle anytime I want. Yes, this is paradise. But yeah, so we did the world building and the gazetteers first. So really then, like, this book started out like with a much broader like kind of scope and then got narrowed
Mhm.
down, which is a really interesting way to do that. Um, and I don't know if that would work for me. I'd have to try that.
It
I
I don't know, like if for me it was like knowing that the worlds that like you kind of figure out like what story you want to tell, right? Like
mhm.
you take your base idea and then you're like, well, I have to build a world. So what world would this story live in? And like let's flesh that out and give it like legs so that this story can be told the best way possible is how I approached it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Um, I just, I don't guess I've ever thought about, like, oh, let me build a whole realm
Yeah, whole
and then
world.
pick one village. Because then I feel like in my brain it would be like, but what about your other children?
So that's how I feel a little bit, like the mountains. I'm like, but I have a story about the mountain. Like I want to talk about it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we gotta wait to see, what they do as far as like the open gaming license and all the worlds in this
Hmm.
book, but maybe you'll be able to write it.
Yeah, maybe. Because
We'll find
I.
find out soon, a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, I hope they give us open gaming license on some of these worlds. I've been reading through like all the various articles and everything, um,
Mhm.
and I'm very amazed. Um, so let's see. I've got lost my train of thought here. Oh yes. So aside from this, you've done other, actual play stuff and anything. Have you done other writing projects, and what were those like? And then the second part of the question is like, what would you want to do going from here as like your next big writing project?
Oh, so the only so my background as a writer is actually in comedy and plays.
Yes.
So in Chicago, that's what I did. I did some sketch and I also created a couple of one act plays that we would perform and it would be great. But for games, the only game that I've helped write was a module for this smaller indie game called Flip Tales. It was
Mm,
like a kids card game, and it was
that
super great.
sounds fun.
But yeah, it was about a witch who turned
I
into a
I love
goose.
I love kids
I
games
mean,
because they're just so whimsical. You're like, I have this
yes,
silly idea. Kids are gonna love it.
hmm it's the best. Um, and from here, I think I'm not really sure. I had such a great time writing on this book, and if we were to revisit it or expand it, I would love to be again with the same team and do something else, like a part two to it. I would love that opportunity, and also invite other writers into the fray too. Um, and I think that might be it. I don't know. It's sort of like in a weird way I feel like I hit this home run and I'm like, but I don't what else now? I don't
I
know.
I know, right? You're like, well, I kind of did my dream project, and now I have to think of a
Yeah.
new dream, and that's
Mhm.
that's very difficult, right? But yeah, no, I definitely think that going from here, you're gonna have so many opportunities, obviously, because this is you absolutely just like knocked it out of the park. I think your background being in improv really helped you here lead to something where like it flows very well and very naturally,
Oh, thank
which is
you.
a very could be a very difficult thing to do, especially when you're making it kind of modular with like the games and the markets and stuff
Mhm.
like that. It's kind of difficult for a lot of people to pick up on like, okay, where should I like stop this and make it, the brevity of it versus like
Yeah.
where do I put more and how do I convince players to move from one area to the other rather than sitting there and making the poor DM make stuff up all day that's not in the book because they're like, well, we need to know more about the goblin on the bar stool. You're like,
Yeah. But why?
why? Why? I have so many other things I've written that you should go to. Um, so, I think that that and combining with like, having just enough information there for, like you mentioned, the DMs to make up more shops, make up more NPCs and everything, will definitely make this super replayable. Especially for those people who want to figure out how to win the games. Um,
Mhm.
I gotta play this adventure
It's
again so
not
I
a
can,
guarantee. Yeah.
yeah. So some of them can be tricky, but I think that's great. Um, gosh, yes. I'm having a hard time today.
No,
I'm
it's good.
having a
It is.
day, everyone. It's been like Monday part three. Um, but yeah. Uh, so yes, there we go. So yeah, so characters in here. That was the other thing here.
Mhm.
There are a lot of named NPCs. Um, where like I know for me, one naming NPCs is the hardest thing, but also like coming up with a character that has enough in them to not be like a two-dimensional thing
Mhm.
can be very tricky. Were there like real people or things that you were kind of drawing your inspiration from for all of these characters, or just or like fictional literary characters even, or not necessarily literary?
Yeah. I love creating NPCs. I think it's like my favorite thing to do because I love creating characters who are just like a little unhinged or there's a little like chaos or silliness to them. Um, so I think, a lot of the characters I created were I think like the Kobold Gammon, he is very similar. If we're gonna talk about like character inspiration, I see his personality similar to like Aang from Avatar.
Oh,
Like, right, just like a good little mister who's doing his best.
he's trying so hard and things
He's
just
trying
go
so hard.
wrong.
Yeah.
Why? Why do they always
Uh,
go wrong? Um,
right. There is an NPC that is named Madame Culp. She owns one of the shops. Um, I sort of I cheated a little bit because I know that there are things that get like on the cutting room floor, when
mhm.
you create anything. So I created two characters that were inspired by my grandma. And Madame Culp, not Madame Culp, yeah, Madame Culp made the cut, and she's there being like the sassier incarnation of my grandma, and along with her little like caterpillar friends that she has.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
All right. Oh gosh, I was about to ask questions from chat and now I've somehow moved it. Where did it go? Yes, yes. Um, So yeah, that was the thing here. Sam's right. So George, yeah, I like yours too. Where some of our DMs who have this in their hands and they've been reading it through, like every time they read through the adventure, find more little details, and they keep going back and adding to their notes. And that's kind of the thing that I was finding too. It's like, oh no, no, the players are definitely gonna have to meet that person, or definitely gonna have to do this
Hmm.
thing, and yeah, there we go. Let me type that. And so, I think that I do. Uh, I think that, that kind of, knowing that even like as we're reading it and prepping it, like we're finding these little, I don't know, they almost feel like Easter eggs to where you're like, oh,
Hmm.
oh, I thought I had this bit, but there's more, right? And
Yeah.
so I absolutely love that. All right. I feel like I've talked a lot, chat, and I know I've been a little remiss in following along with what you've all had to say, but I'm not seeing very many questions, and this is your time
Right.
to ask questions, right? I'm sure you have them, right? We've got a lot of people who are agreeing with the being excited. Got some more gnome players. Uh,
Yes.
Ms. D360 playing that deep gnome through Salted Legacy, but didn't take Dancing Lights, so you haven't started it yet. There's still time to change your spell list, okay? um, and yeah, I guess that's a great question. Obviously, you know the adventure, but what character would you play in it if you had to make
Oh,
one?
if oh boy. Hmm.
Or yeah,
I so that's such a good question. If I were to pick a or create a character to play in this campaign, I would probably create a tabaxi chef who is just looking for like the latest and greatest recipes for their repertoire. And so I would want to talk to literally everyone and like get
ooh,
their take on what spices they use and all of that stuff.
that would be so much fun.
Right?
Yes. So we've got, let's see. So Glass Cannon 1606. So asked if you read other adventures before publication. So I don't know that you would have read the full adventure, but like you said, you were all collaborating.
Yeah, so we read each other's before things went to the edit cycle. So I would say everybody's adventure was like is
Yeah.
much beefier because it has to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So y- like
And
pitches and outlines were shared, basically.
pitches, outlines, like first drafts, I guess, were shared. And they're all so good and they're also varied. So my adventure is comedy, calamity, mischief, but the one next, like right after, is real freaking scary. It is like a Southern Gothic horror. Like it is really good, and they all just vary in tone. So uh, if you like if this adventure right is like your speed, like that's amazing, but like if you like playing grittier things or like more intense, that's also in this
That's
book.
gonna be in there too. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
very much like Candlekeep then, and that some of them were
Mhm.
very like lighthearted, happy-go-lucky, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is fine, this is a breeze.
Yeah.
And then others, you're getting beaten in a bathhouse. I,
Yeah, like
I'm sorry. Uh, my little goblin is still traumatized from that. Although, I definitely got myself into that situation. 100% my
as we
fault.
do, as we adventurers tend to do.
Yeah. Let's see. We got somebody says they're gonna play a rogue, no spellcasting till third level. So yes. Oh, excellent question then from Glasgow. What other cultures would you have drawn from if you were asked to write like a second adventure in the book? Is there anything?
Oh,
Because obviously you wanted to
sure.
do this one, but I'm sure you had other ideas.
Yeah, so I'm multiracial. So my mom is from Thailand. I'm first generation, but my dad is Hispanic. And so if I were to explore another culture, I would pull draw from like my Mexican heritage.
There's so
Mario,
much,
there's
so
so
much.
much. Mario, who's a writer on the book as well, created an incredible story that draws on his heritage. He actually lives in Mexico. Um, so yeah, that's what I would do. But he's very, very good, and you should check out his story.
I feel like I probably know Mario, but not by that name.
Yeah, he's an incredible writer, truly.
Oh, hi, Teos. Teos is there.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. All right then. Oh, this is a good question. Do you have a favorite food from a night market?
Oh, yes, I do. Um, there's this stall called Vada's Otherworldly Delicacies in the book. And they sell these vanilla custard buns. And I feel like those would be my favorite food. They're like bows, but sugary and full of
Mhm.
vanilla custard.
For me, from like any market foods, it's always pastries that are kind of savory but have something sweet all over them, and foods on a
Yes.
stick. I love
Foods
food
on a
on a
stick.
stick. I
That's the
love,
night market. Food like didn't see night market, all foods on a stick. Like
yes, I had food on a stick for lunch today. Uh, a
incredible. I'm very
steak
jealous.
steak stick snack was what it was listed on the menu as, and I was like, I'm not gonna say that 10 times. Yeah, I know custard buns, right? I think we've all got, like our favorite foods, like comfort foods. I know for me, obviously here we don't have night markets, but like being from this half of the country, fairs are a big thing. So
Ooh,
for
yeah.
me, when we're talking about the state fair foods, um, I gotta have my funnel cake, and I am still sad at myself. There was a funnel cake pop-up vendor at MomoCon where I was just at the end of May, Memorial Day weekend, and I was too busy to get a funnel cake.
No.
I thought about
No.
sending someone, but every time I looked, I'm like, oh, that line is like 40 people long. I cannot spare a volunteer for that long. It
Oh,
is a bit,
tragic.
yeah, yeah, I know. Oh, excellent question there. Does food in the adventure, and I hope it does, give special effects like temporary HP, advantage on, like mechanic things? Obviously you don't have to talk about what the exact mechanics are, but
Mhm.
like, does the food do stuff other than make you happy in your soul?
So that it's so funny. That was a conversation that we had. And it ended up being because I wanted to add so much food. Like I went full ham on like pun intended on like the menu list and like the stalls that we decided okay we'll just list the prices and the food and then keep it vague so that the DM can say like yes this does this and let's assign attributes. There is a game that has food that does things but a lot of it is pretty safe. So please eat the food. Don't be scared of it.
You as the DM though have liberty, unless you're running this for us Baldwin games, in which case please stick to the book.
Yeah.
Please. Not that it wouldn't be fun to give everyone heartburn and disadvantage because it hurts so bad they ate something too spicy. That's me. That's me as my life.
That's me as
Um,
well. I get like acid
yeah.
reflux. Like no.
It's like I would like to attack you, but like, give me a minute. Um, yeah. That's a great question too. Is there anything else, like the announcements that have been made for upcoming content that you are just super excited about? I mean, aside from this book, of course,
Yeah.
because
I
there's a
am.
lot of stuff coming
There's
out.
so much happening. Like everyone in the world, I am excited about Spelljammer. It's gonna be amazing. I really just want to play an ooze. Like that's an
Yes,
option. I can play a slime. Like
I
thank
want,
you.
I want to be a sentient ooze. Thank
Yeah.
you. Um,
Um, and
I
fighting against space
yeah.
clowns sounds amazing. Like and terrifying.
I put a
I'm into it.
terrifying sentient ooze into an adventure I wrote, and now it comes about full circle, and I shall be the ooze. Ooh, great question from Teos. So Ajit talked a lot about making this a very positive project. So how did
Mhm.
you work to put that into your adventure?
That's an incredible question.
Yeah.
So in knowing that my adventure would be the first in the book, I wanted it to feel like you're being invited over to somebody's house. You know what I mean? Like setting the table for you to really have like a fun, safe time together and starting it off right away with like comedy and making people feel like safe and included. Because I think that in the different iterations, I came back to these mini games because um, games. I mean, we all know, and everyone in chat, you all know too. Like games bring people together.
Mhm.
So like, can we game within a game bring our characters together? Like, can we create
Absolutely.
a quick bond right away through this trial that I'm putting you all through? Um, and so I think that that was something that I wanted to have the tone of mine feel right off the bat.
I did a what adventure was that in? There were carnival games, and we tied all the adventurers together to where they basically each had one of their own legs they were standing on, but it was tied to the, like the two-legged race effect.
Yeah.
But more people. Oh, that really brought them together.
See?
They
Through
were
through shared calamity, they are together.
figuring out after one fell, like, how do we, how do we just drag them now? Do we just, can we like scoop them up? Do all four
You just
legs have to
roll.
touch the ground? What are the actual rules?
I mean, those are all very good questions.
They really were, and I was just like, oh gosh, let me think. All right, so I think for our final question here, this is a good one, and then we'll close with all of our usual stuff. So they want to know, are you more of a player or of a dungeon master, and why is that?
Ooh, so I am more of a player. However, DMing is something that I want to dip my toes more in. I DM'd a season of Rivals of Waterdeep, and
Yes.
it was really fun and terrifying because I'm not used to consequences, I guess, because when you're a player, like you can kind of you're doing the thing, but with when you're a DM, you there's so much you have to keep track of, and making the world still be alive around the players instead of for the players.
Hmm.
Um, and so I am a more of a player, but I want to DM more home games. I think is my next adventure.
I think it's great. It's a great answer and a good reason, right? So, and I'm gonna answer it too, right? For those of you who know me, obviously I run more games than I play. Not that I don't love playing, um, but I don't know, I'm really nice and everybody wants to play, so I run the game. And I really enjoy doing that. Um, Pretty much actually for the reason that you said you're kind of hesitant about it because like I feel like I have a larger impact on this side of the dungeon, the DM screen and um can really take what my players are doing and kind of turn it on their head as to what they expect and be like, okay, that's a really great idea, and I can see how you all are leading down this path of, oh, this is really obvious. This is what we think is going to happen, and it's not. It's not now. It might
Yeah,
have been
I've changed my
originally.
mind. Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't silly idea. We shan't do that. Um, and really, like, I love doing that because it gives you the freedom to be like, okay, so you've done something I completely didn't expect, but I can just pivot and
Yeah.
make this world like something that is reactive to what you do, which as a DM, like being reactive rather than proactive is a perfectly good trait, unlike for a lot of other things in the world. And I like that. Um, that said, I do want to thank you again so much for being here on the show. We are at the end of our time, so I want to give you the opportunity to tell everyone where they can find you and your stuff online, and any other closing thoughts you have.
Sure. If you are on Twitter, you can find me at Surena X Marie. If you like adorable, silly illustrations, you can find me on Instagram at Surena is a bee. Um, and yeah, that's what I have happening. So, oh, Journeys to the Radiant Citadel comes out July 19th.
Yes, a little delay there, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And find me, of course, on the internet at Jenny and Loveday on all the things. But more importantly, you can find Baldman Games. We've got our Facebook page. We are at Baldman Games on Twitter. You can tweet at us. But more importantly than that, we are running our virtual D&D weekend this weekend. So you can still go and get tickets for that. It is baldman.link/June-Tix, Tix. I don't know why we can't spell that out. That wasn't me. I didn't do it. But yeah, so you can still get games to play this weekend. I believe we still even have seats open for Salted Legacy. Ted, please don't hate me if I've said that wrong. But aside from that, definitely join our Discord. It's the best place to hang out with us. People are lovely. You can chat about your opinions about adventures like this, cool things that you would add, share things that you've made, and everyone's just so excited. And if they're mean, we get rid of them. Um, so you don't have to worry about that. And that is discord.gg/bmg. So please join us there. And even more importantly, if you love DMing, definitely reach out to us, especially if you want to go to any of the big in-person shows. Yeah, Spencer, you're lazy and tickets is too many letters. I know why. Because we're always looking for DMs for the in-person shows. Like Origins is this weekend, so we had DMs for that, and then Gen Con. I believe we still need people for that. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you at some of those shows, and maybe I'll even see you, Serena. You get to some shows somewhere. Who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, with that, that is gonna be it for this episode of the Baldman Games Chat About. Till next time, everyone.
Bye.